Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of the Gunman. So today we're going to be spraying the roof or turret on this CX-5, and we're going to be spraying it Mazda color Sol Red Crystal. So the paint code is 46V, not to be confused with Sol Red, which is 41V. So that's the initial variation, I guess, of this color. So yeah, the 46V is quite a lot nicer actually. We, at the time of this car being in the workshop, we had a 41V, so the just standard Sol Red, and we had this car, and they were sitting two car bays away from each other. And I'll tell you what, once you get this car, so this color next to the previous iteration of the color, which was just standard Sol Red, the Sol Red just looks boring. It just looks like a standard red, whereas if you get Sol Red next to a standard red, it looks quite good. So yeah, this is really like another step above. It really does look quite nice. I think so anyway. So basically, yeah, we're just spraying the roof on this job. Pretty straightforward job, really. However, yeah, it's not the easiest color to spray. I wouldn't say it's that difficult for any spray painters with a bit of experience behind them. However, there may be some people with limited skills or less experience that may find it a little bit tricky. So yeah, look, I'll just take you guys through the paintwork on this. So obviously it was a brand new turret, and I put some wet on wet primer down, aka sealer. People in the US just call it sealer. If you came over to Australia and you said, oh, I want to put some sealer on that roof or that turret, people would be thinking that you're talking about seam sealer. But yeah, here in Australia we just call it wet on wet. So I put that down, and I ended up getting a few little nibs in it. So you may have noticed me a few minutes ago just sanding out a couple of those nibs. And now I'm applying my base coat color with my Devilbus GTI Pro, and I've actually got the HV25 air cap on it. I used this air cap for base coat for well over a year, and it was only until the DV1 came out, which this thing sort of took second spot now. So it's sort of a bit of a what I call a helper gun. So if I'm in their booth there and I'm doing 2 or 3 colors, it'll get pulled out. But yeah, I do much prefer my DV1 now. As I have said in previous videos, I'm not overly happy with the price increase, but we won't get too involved in spray guns for this video. It's more focusing on spraying this color. So the color variant I'm using, whenever I get one of these sort of special colors that aren't just a standard 2-stage metallic or solid color or something like that, it always pays to just give your paint rep a call. That's really one of the few times that I ever actually need the paint reps in usual circumstances. So, you know, when I get one of these, I'll just give them a call and say, hey, you guys have probably came across this color before. At the end of the day, that's what they're there for. That's their job, to be on top of these colors. And I just said, hey, have you got a good variant that you know is quite good straight off the mix without having to stuff around doing all this matching? And my mate from Parks there, he said, yes, we do have a good variant. It's a Cromax variant. So Cromax Solvent is the base coat color that you see me using here. And then so the clear coat is the stage I'm up to now. So I've got the base coat down nice and even. The first coat didn't look too even, but not to worry, we got it on even in the end after a couple of coats. So yeah, no need to panic if your first coat isn't looking so good with your base coat color. But what I'm actually using for the Tinted Clear here, so this is 2-pack clear coat mixed with a special tinter, and I believe it's a candy. I think it is a candy. Like the numbers on them are like KA672 and KA671 and KA673. So they're not just a standard tinter. I believe they are a candy. However, it doesn't actually specifically say this is a candy, but I would say that the KA somehow represents candy, if you know what I mean. But yeah, so the Tinted Clear variant is actually Standox. So I'm putting Standox Clear over the Cromax base coat, and you know, I went through that with the paint rep, and he said that'll be fine. You know, but he just knows that ground coat color was good. So I did do my own spray outs. He had his spray outs. He came out to my workshop. I looked at his spray outs towards the car. I said, that looks good. I then ordered in some of the Cromax base coat. I think it was the 6000 range, so the base coat color which you saw me put down, I guess it's like a pinky style color. I sprayed that out, and then I mixed up the Standox top color, and then sprayed that out. I did like 3 sections on the color card. I did like 1, 2, and 3 coats. I found that 2 coats was where it really wanted to be. And yeah, some of you guys probably know that in videos past, I've always gone towards the tinted base coat variants, but I might start using the tinted clear variants from now on, because this variant looks great. And yeah, there's just a few things that you really need to remember, and just flash off times. That's the main thing. Like, use slow hardener as well. That's probably the actual main thing. So use slow hardener in your clear coat, and then go 10 minutes in between your first and second coat, and then another 10-15 minutes in between your second coat and your clear coat. So what we're going to be doing is putting 2 coats of the tinted clear down, and then we're going to be putting 1 coat of just standard clear that's not tinted over the top of that. So yeah, the reason I did decide to use the DV1 for the tinted clear is because I'm so happy with the even disbursement that this gun does provide. You know, I've been very impressed with this gun. Now, I actually recorded this video ages ago now. It's been quite some time. It must have been 2 months ago now, because it was around the time that I got the SATA X5500, which I didn't want to make this video before I made my SATA review, so, because yeah, there was a few things that I wanted to reveal in that video. But all that aside, one of my main concerns going into this job was getting the candy coat nice and even, and you know, that's the main thing you've really got to be careful of. Don't put it on too heavy, or else you could get some window framing or sausages around the edges of your panels. And on the other hand, you don't want to get it on too light, or else you could get some form of mottling, or it could be a little bit patchy. So you really want to hit that sweet spot right in the middle. So nice and wet, but just not too wet. So maybe dial that fluid in, you know, maybe 2 or 3 turns out. Honestly, as I said, it's been quite some time since I did spray this job, so I can't exactly remember the settings that I've used, but yeah, what all the paint reps say is just do nice tight passes, and I do remember that. So I did like a DNA paints training course, so they have all their candies and flakes and all the custom paints that you can imagine, and they did just say keep a nice tight overlap. So I don't know, I just went into this job without too much stress, you know, just keeping a few things in mind, and the end result is something that I'm quite happy with. Now, I have actually noticed with these colors, they will look better always outside. It's weird, like you might see the finest little bit of mottling in the booth, but then you get them outside and they look perfect. So, you know, just maybe keep that in mind. Don't, you know, totally panic if you get it in there and you can see a little bit of mottling or patchiness or something like that in the candy coat. Maybe just clear it down, get it outside, and it should look pretty good. Well, that's from my experience anyway. So the booth lights that we use in this spray booth are ultra bright. I think they're like daylight globes or something like that. So you can see they've got a very bright blue light in them. Most people's garages don't have those kinds of lights in them, and outside, you know, you have obviously the sunlight. So yeah, another thing with this job, on the job sheet it said blend quarter panels, right? So I had blends on the quarter panels if I wanted to use them. I opted not to use them. I was quite happy with the color going edge to edge, and I did include some footage of this car when it's all finished off and out in the sun, and it's looking very good. So I'm glad I didn't waste my time blending those quarter panels. Now, anyone who works in a busy panel shop will definitely understand this. You know, the extra time and effort that it would have required for me to blend those quarter panels, it's just not worth it. So you saw that I had to put the wet on wet primer down over the roof first. So if I was to blend those quarter panels, I nearly would have had to have sprayed them separately. So I nearly would have had to have sprayed the roof and then maybe even baked it out and then done the blends, or just done some sort of tricky masking in between you know, wet on wet stages and base coat stages and all that kind of thing. So, you know, That's something worth keeping in mind. However, if it was say like a door, if I was doing say a rear door, I would definitely blend either way. So the way I used to spray a job like this, if I was say doing a brand new rear door, and then I had to do a couple of blends each way, I used to spray the inside of the door first, hang it up onto the car, and then blend it all at the same time. Now there was one time that I was just way too busy and I just didn't have time to double handle all these panels, and it was like a new fender, right? So I just thought, man, I don't have time to edge these up, I don't have time to get it fitted up, I need to just spray this all at once. So I just sprayed a new fender off the car and I put it on and it looked perfect. So you can paint panels off the car doing these kinds of colors as long as you spray them at the same time, using the same settings, same guns. You're also in there at the same temperature settings, you know. So if you were to say spray the door at a separate time than the blends or something like that, then you may actually run into some issues. But yeah, I'd say, you know, you are pretty safe to do them off the cars, not all together at one. Look, I've done it and it works fine. So yeah, onto the clear coat stage. As I say, just use slow hardener, medium or slow hardener if you can, and just observe those flash off times and you should be right. So again, just give it a good 10 minutes before you hit bake, you know, because you are using those slow hardeners. Now, I did one of these jobs. It was like a full front ender. It was the original Sol Red, right? And I used Tinted Clear and I used fast hardeners in them. I'm like, yeah, I don't have time to use slow hardener, and it just totally came around and bit me in the ass. So I baked it and it just, the whole thing just solvent boiled. I left it for, you know, I thought I'd left it for long enough in between coats, but yeah, this time I took the paint rep's advice and used the slow hardener, and yes, I highly recommend doing that for you, yeah, if you are going to spray one of these colors. Like, I had this hero in the comment section of the previous Sol Red video I did years ago, right? And it was just like the first time I sprayed it, and it must have taken like an hour and a half or something to apply all the different coats of paint that I had to put over a brand new bumper cover, right? So you had to, your plastic primer, your ground coats, your this, that and the other, and your clear coats and all that to finish it off. And this guy in the comment section is like, oh man, I just sprayed that color and it like took me 20 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, well, you haven't got enough flash off time there, hero, you know what I mean? He's like, if I took an hour and a half to paint a bumper bar or bumper cover, then I'd get the sack. And I'm like, yeah, well, good on you, man. My boss knows that if I've taken an hour and a half to spray a panel, then there's going to be a good reason for it. We have that trust factor between us, you know. Anyway, yeah, there's all Standox Clear that I used on this, as I think I did mention at the start, and just the Standox Standard Clear. And yeah, using that Jet 5500X or X5500. This has got the 1.2i fan pattern on it, and yeah, as I said in the review, the gun itself sprays better than any starter I've ever used. However, on the other side of it, like, there is some SATA sprays, well, one specific SATA spray that I read in the comments on my review, and he's like, man, I don't like it, I don't like the eye pattern. And that doesn't really surprise me, because it does spray a fair bit different than, say, the SATA 5000 RPs. Now, you've got a lot more control. They don't absolutely pump the material out. So if you like the original SATA 5000s, it's not surprising that you don't like this gun. It's more in the lines of a DeVilbiss, it really is. So, you know, I really do like the way these SATAs spray, but I just can't get past that fan adjustment knob. Always playing. You can see my thumb on it as I speak now. My thumb's absolutely sitting right on it. So if I actually pinch it up, which I prefer to have it pinched up just maybe 1/8 of a turn, just a little bit, then I'm always playing with it, and it's just so disconcerting when you're spraying. Also, I don't like the pressure adjustment. But hey, this isn't a spray gun review, so I should be shutting up about the spray guns and focusing more on the job. But yeah, look, that's just to be able to wrap this job up. So, you know, again, you just don't want to overload any of the coats of clear. You know, you don't want to overload your final coat, which is this coat here. You don't want to overload the candy coats, and yeah, that's really about it. It's not overly difficult to spray this color, and you can blend the color. So, you know, it's one of those things, you're never going to blend it 100%, because where you're putting the candy, you're sort of doubling up on the blend section, and that's part of the reason why I would never paint a daily driver a color like this. You know, they're really not a good color to do repairs on. If you get a little chip or a scratch, you can barely even touch them up properly. yeah, I think candy colors and these sort of custom colors should be more reserved for, you know, your show cars and stuff like that. I personally wouldn't ever buy a car that's got this kind of a color on it. I wouldn't want it on a daily driver that goes down to the shopping centers and gets scratched. So here's a look at the color out in the sun, and as I say, like, I think I could slightly see a little bit of mottling in the spray booth, like ever so slightly, but you look out here and it looks absolutely fine. You know, you can't see any extra heavy spots where I overlapped or anything like that. And if you hang around for another minute, you're gonna get a look at the color going edge to edge. So just keep in mind that I did spray the top section of that tailgate. So the top section of that tailgate is going edge to edge up to that quarter panel, and the color looks absolutely perfect. So the variant is the Australian variant, Cromax Solvent Australian variant. Rightio gunners, hope you enjoyed watching the video. Hope you learned something out of it. Until next time, get out there and paint some shit. Gunman out.